Hey guys, Elon Chino here, and I appreciate you guys visiting the blog article. The purpose of this video is to show you, when you create a new PowerShell function, what this new code does, how does it work, and getting an understanding of how it works will help you guys build your new PowerShell functions. The first two important things to understand are these two variables, the first being request and the second being response. So let's move over to integrate here. And if you recall, when we created our function, we created it as a webhook plus API type of function. What that means is that the trigger is based on HTTP. Right? In order to make a call to this function, we have to make an HTTP call. And the data that we send in that HTTP call are stored in a variable called request. Then the function does its code, right? It does its checks, it stores data. And how do we get that data back to a client? Well, we send it output to HTTP, meaning that we send that data in that variable back to the HTTP client that made that initial request. That data that you send, how do we send it back to the HTTP client? Well, we send it to response. And we can see that if we look back at the actual function, when we make the request, we make the request to this variable request. And then we do some checks and balances, which we'll cover here in a minute. But when we send this data back to the HTTP client, we're running this command push output binding, name response. This is the key part that sends the data back to the client. But what data do we send back to the client? Well, we send a status code and we send a body. Let's take a look at how this status code is built and how this body is built. So the first thing that we have is this variable called name. Name equals request, again request being the HTTP input data, dot query, as in query string, dot name. So in the URL call to the function, if we submit a query string called name, that data gets stored into this variable. If we did not submit a query string with name, then let's take a look at the body of the request that's sent in. And that body could be a JSON body. So if we submitted a JSON body to this function, and one of the variables or parameters in that body was name, then we store that data inside this $name. So if either of the calls, if we submitted the URL with a query string or we submit a body, as long as there is name inside that body or query string, then this check will be successful. Then we'll submit this $status equals HTTP status code OK, and the body is hello, and the actual the variable name. If you did not submit a name, so if you did not submit the name in the query string or the body of the HTTP request, then the HTTP status code is bad request, and that gets stored in status. And the body is please pass a name on the query string or in the request body. And then we push those results. So if we have a name value, HTTP status code of OK, aka 200, and we submit back to the client hello, and then the name, the actual name that they gave us in the HTTP request. Otherwise, if name is not there, then we submit a status code of bad request, aka 400, and then we tell the HTTP client that you need to pass a name on the query string or in the request body. And then we push that data back to the HTTP client via this response variable. Let's take a look at how this actually works when calling the function. Let's go to get function URL and let's copy this URL into the browser. Let's open up a new tab and let's go to the function with no query strings. And we can see that it says please pass a name on the query string or in the request body. And that is because, again, we did not submit anything with the name of name in the query string, and we definitely set no body. Therefore, there is no name, and the HTTP status code becomes bad request, and the body becomes please pass a name on the query string or in the request body. However, if we go back here and we change the query string or add a query string to name equals Elon Chedno, we get this message that says hello Elon Chedno, because now we have a query string with the name of name which successfully stores that data inside this variable. So now this if name matches, so now instead of the status code being bad request with this message, we get an HTTP status code of OK, and the body is hello, and then the actual value of name. So when we push that data back to the HTTP requesting clients, the status now is 200 OK, and the body is actually this message, hello, and then the name that the user submitted in the query string. In order for us to test this leveraging an HTTP body instead of a query string, we can choose this run button, which brings us to this test panel. And we can see that the request body has a name and it has the actual name of the individual. And this is built using JSON. And by default it runs, and we can see that the output says hello Elon Chedno. If we change this to John Doe and click run again, we'll see that now the output is hello John Doe. And if we remove the request body completely, meaning that when we're calling the function we're not specifying a query string, nor are we specifying a request body, we get the output of please pass a name on the query string or in the request body. Now let's say that we did not want to leverage the query string or the HTTP body parameter of name. Let's say this is a location-based function. We're requesting a specific location from the individual that's calling the function, and we want to take that data and do something with the location. Well, the key thing that we need to change is the query name needs to be location and the body parameter name needs to be location. So we might as well change these variables to make more sense by specifying the variable name of location. So let's go ahead and change these variables. So now our location equals the query string parameter of location, and if not location, then we will take a look at the request body if there's a parameter named location. And if location successfully gets submitted, then we'll store body. Let's change this to be location specified is location. Else, if we don't have a location, then specify please pass a location on the query string or in the request body. So let's go ahead and save this and let's try executing it. So now, if we try submitting, let's submit it with the query string of name, and let's see what happens. You can see that the message we get is please pass a location on the query string or in the request body, because now we're expecting location either in the query string or in the HTTP body. So now let's change this to be location equals, let's say North Central US. So we have a bug here. Location specified is location. Let's take a look at our code, and we can see that we forgot the $, making it a variable. Let's go ahead and save it, and let's go ahead and run it again. Now we can see location specified is North Central US. So as you're writing your code, if we want to do functions where we're connecting into Azure PowerShell and doing something on a per region basis, we could specify the location in the query string or the HTTP body of location, knowing that $location will equate to the location you specified in that body or query string, and then take some actions like get-az location with the region name or some other type of command. Hopefully that gives you guys some nice insight as to how a PowerShell function works, how to start modifying the default PowerShell code to achieve the results that you want. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment on my blog. Take care, guys.